Good afternoon, everybody. I am Anto Badiarjo, and welcome to Monday Live. This is something that we do every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. to figure out the future of smarter buildings. As you can see, we're a little light today. We just have Ken and myself. We have at least a couple of people in the audience that we're going to bring on to have a conversation, and maybe others from the normal group would also join us. The panelists who are typically here are listed on Monday Live. If you want to know who we are, just a reminder that the views expressed here are personal and not of any company or organization. And let's do make this as interactive as possible on using the chat. And this slide deck is on mondaylive.org, just in case you want to have any of the links on it. So this month we are tackling the climate change subject, specifically in terms of how it can and will impact buildings and automation of building systems. Our agenda, normal chit chat, a little bit of that, and then going to get some sort of experiences from the field. We have a couple of guests, Justin and Audrey, that I'll bring on once we get started. But before that, again, what's going on in your world?
We just got this article online, Decarbonization and Electrification Era. It's been pretty well received, getting over about 1,000 interactions in the last few days. I think what's happening is we're kind of stepping out of our traditional market where we kind of know everybody, and we're starting to enter into a new arena. So that's good. I'm celebrating that. As Brad pointed out last week, this decarbonization, especially the electrification piece, provides a great opportunity for the building automation industry to kind of revisit all of their old dinosaur systems and take them apart and put them back together the way they should be. And of course, what's driving that is the hybrid building. Then he pointed out that in a lot of the colder climates, it doesn't make sense to completely heat pump the building, and because you have the existing carbon systems. So we kind of get the Prius approach, where we have a thing that runs on electric when it can, and when it can't, it switches over to carbon. So that greatly complicates the controls. Probably not the right word. Sophisticates is maybe a better word. But anyway, it involves a lot of our industry, and it's going to create a lot of business, I think. It's going to be good. I've also linked Justin's article there, because I think he does a good job of sort of laying out what it is I hope he's going to talk about. And also there was just an event that I wasn't able to go to, but I think Justin went to with Scott Sinclair, and they were over at the university, and their take is written at the bottom there: reducing energy in existing buildings is the key to avoiding catastrophic climate change, and data-driven methods, which I think is something we're all interested in. And this is called the Rebuild Initiative. So I'm kind of hoping that Justin will give us a little bit of his take on that too, because I think he was going to be at that event. I may be mistaken, but he'll tell us when he comes on. So I think that's about it. I'm still waiting for the ControlCon stuff. There was some bit of a mix-up in the videos that were produced by the people on site. We're still trying to get some of that stuff out. So hoping to have that published later this week.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ken. Some update from C4SB, a little bit of an update since last week. Rick is not here because he's got other engagements today. There's a big presentation. Big is the Building Intelligence Group, which is the nationwide network of organizations, local organizations, and they have a presentation. They make a big sort of national presentation every quarter, and this is the one that's coming up on the 1st. And C4SB will be presenting at that. Also at Haystack, we're still trying to figure out what the potential presentation is there. Tracy, Jim, and myself will be at RealCom in Vegas, and these other events are mostly Rick is going to be focusing on that. So that's what's going on C4SB. From my perspective, a couple of things. On the left, there's a guy by the name of Robert Scoble, shown here in the picture. He's a bit of an eccentric. He used to work for Microsoft and then Rackspace, and then he's very, very much an influencer in Silicon Valley. He's a little bit of a crazy dude, and he does sort of crazy things. And one of the things he did this past week is that he obviously had a session with his shrink, and just like what he is, he recorded it on Zoom with the intention of sharing it with the world, which is a weird thing, last thing you typically want to do when you have a meeting with your shrink. But what was interesting was that his shrink, this lady that you see here, was using an AI tool, presumably a new AI tool that they've developed, to analyze their conversation. So they actually recorded a 30-minute conversation, and then Robert and she had a discussion about what the analytics or the results of what the AI produced. And it's really fascinating. And specifically, it's not so much fascination about him and his life, which is obviously what the content was, but it's interesting how the AI recorded everything, and then they sort of looked at everything that was said and actually interpret those things into different sort of categories. And it's really fascinating. Watch about half an hour YouTube video, but it goes into, I think, some insights into how AI works and how potentially it can be disruptive on all sorts of applications, not just in what this is doing with mental problems. But anyway, you may find that interesting. The other thing is a Forbes article talking about a company that's done some analysis and projecting that the cost of AI, the data center cost of AI in 2028 is going to be $78 billion. And that didn't really mean that much to me because everything's $1 billion when in data centers. But that is twice the current cost of AWS running their operation. Right. So take AWS. There, twice that is basically what this firm is estimating that the AI component of cloud services is going to cost in less than 5 years here. So pretty amazing article again. And some of the links in case you need them. And any other thoughts? Just in time, we have Steve.
Better late than never.
There you go.
Yep.
Any thoughts that you want to share?
No, I think we're ready to move on.
All right, thank you. That's good thoughts. All right, so we're going to continue talking about buildings and climate change, and I'm going to bring on our two guests. First is Justin Blanchfield, and second I'm going to bring on Audrey. So if you can both join us. And so maybe we can start by a little bit of introduction for both of from both of you and your perspective and your angle on climate change and obviously buildings. And then I know, Justin, that you wanted to make a presentation of about 10 minutes, then we can do that, and then we can turn it into discussion. So I see, Justin, you're ready and unmuted, so why don't you make your introductions, and then we'll do Audrey, and then we'll let Justin present.
Great.
All yours.
Okay, thank you, Anto. So thank you for this opportunity. Great to meet and chat with some fellow automation geeks here. I know I'm in good company. And I just wanted to mention, I enjoyed last week's discussion was really good. Enjoyed it quite a lot. And Brad, who was the guest last week. Brad and I have been colleagues, best friends, business partners, and we were actually best man at each other's wedding. So I know I'm in good company here. And Ken has been a mentor of mine for over 15 years. So my career, I put a decade 11 years at SES Consulting, and I was a senior engineer and business partner with SES before leaving the consulting world and going over to the client side, which is what I'd like to talk about today, is some of the lessons learned from the client side.
Great to have you here, Justin. Audrey.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me. So yeah, not sure what's interesting to say about myself, but for those who don't know me, my name is Audrey Wong Gosselin. I use she, her pronouns. I am currently working at ABB. I'm a product marketing manager for the building automation business in the US. But honestly, I don't identify as like an automation professional. I've come into engineering and electrification and digitalization always through the lens of sustainability. That's where my core, my heart has always been, is how am I going to be contributing to solving this climate change problem. And for me, based on my interest in school and everything, that's what brought me to electrical engineering, and then have kind of come into this automation space. But yeah, I think that's what I'm offering here, is that I've seen a bunch of different types of technology, because I started on this power system side and energy storage and the grid to charger side as well, and kind of recently come into building automation. So that's where my perspective is always looking at society through this sustainability perspective.
That's great. Glad that people are. So that's my comment on that. So Justin, I know that you wanted to show some slides and share some specific perspectives, and then you want to do that?
Yeah, let's do that. Just give me one. Oh.
Do that and then click on the thing that says swap displays.
Yeah. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Looks good.
Oh yeah, it's doing something. Okay, it's doing something a little weird for me over here, but that's okay. So I already introduced myself, so I'll skip that part. My focus as an engineer, mechanical engineer, an engineering consultant has been on energy auditing, commercial buildings, continuous optimization, and building automation upgrades. So this is definitely my space here. I stepped over to the client side 2 years ago, and I had it was a neat opportunity that our BC Hydro and Fortis gas utilities were incenting. It's a pilot project where I've been able to develop and launch an internal continuous optimization program. And I work for the Island Health Authority here on beautiful Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada. So the hypothesis that we were getting at is that internalizing this function of continuous optimization leads to greater results, well, let's say more greater results than the consultant-led model, which has been historically how it's always run, is an organization hires a group of consultants to come in and help lead their continuous optimization programs. Here's, oh, yeah, I'm running into a few troubles here. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to reshare. So there, now you can see that screen, correct?
Yep.
Huh, it's not allowing me to go into, all right, I'll just bob and weave here. So here, yeah, here are the results from our first year and a half of operation. These results come from 4 of our buildings, which only represents 7% of our total square footage. The green bars are our quarterly savings, and it's dollar savings, utility, like energy savings, whereas the line is the cumulative sum. So we've invested less than $100,000 to achieve over $300,000 in savings, mainly because of this doesn't include my salary or our internal team members that are doing a lot of the work. But in addition to these measured savings, we've also avoided almost $500,000 in consulting fees for energy studies to identify these projects and also implement them. I've also been able to solve occupancy, comfort issues, and influence capital projects. So in one case, our work allowed us to avoid an unnecessary $1 million cooling tower upgrade. And this is because I'm internal. I'm a colleague. I work for the organization, and there's some incredible value that comes from that. So the results are pretty clear at this point. That this program achieves greater results, cheaper and faster. Here's one building. So you can see the light blue is the baseline consumption, gray is the current consumption, and the purple is the monthly gas savings. So you can sort of see it starting to ramp up over the year as we started implementing, and we're achieving between 20 and 30% gas savings. We're also saving that on the electricity side. So the results, like these are pretty impressive results, leveraging measures that are less than a year payback. So we know that this works. And we have these 2030 GHG emission targets, but 2030 is coming really fast, right? So this is the new sort of place I'm taking my career, is trying to answer this question: how do we actually speed up, right? Because if we know it works, then the trick is really just putting gas on that fire and speeding things up. So this question's been fascinating me for several years now. It's the core reason why I stepped over to the client side, is I believed that was played a critical role in speeding things up, is bringing this role internal, which I'll get to. So I still have lots to learn, of course, but these are my top 4 ways to speed up decarbonization. So the first one, and I was hoping we'd have the whole panel here because I thought this would ring true. I think it's probably pretty clear to the normal Monday Live crowd that it's all about relationships. So few things drive innovation and high performance more than a group of people that have a common purpose and a strong sense of trust and commitment. In my job, I've seen in the trenches that executing successful decarbonization projects require cross-departmental collaboration, right? There's a lot of stakeholders involved, including my team, the energy team, facility maintenance and operations, project management, asset management, purchasing, external consultants, design engineers, and of course our utility partners. And I'm probably missing a few too. So the better your relationships are with these people, the more likely they're going to take your call, the more likely they're going to show up in your meeting, and ultimately the faster things happen. So that's number 1. Number 2, internalizing energy efficiency engineering. So this speaks to my program. I feel like the analogy is to the dawn of the internet era. IT services were once only available through external consultants and contractors. But as computers and the internet became ubiquitous in the workplace, those IT services were internalized, and they were done. That happened so that we could improve quality, reduce cost, and speed up support services. So similarly, I believe that energy efficiency engineering is becoming a critical core function for building owners As we all know, buildings have become increasingly complex to operate. My hypothesis is that we cannot train our facility maintenance staff and our DDC techs or BAS techs to become energy efficiency engineers. Why not hire an engineer or two and internalize this function? And if the results of our pilot has any, let's just say it's working extremely well. Here's number 3. Energy audits are typically provided with a rigorous engineering study that calculates energy savings based on first principles and dozens of assumptions. This creates an excessive cost burden for clients, and it slows us down. It could take months to get an energy study result back, which is the beginning of everything. So we're just waiting for months. We must stop spending so much time and money on energy saving analysis for well-known best practice energy saving measures. Instead, I believe all of this focus should be focused on designing and implementing as many measures as possible. To go back to your last week's discussion, I believe I'm a disruptor. I'm challenging the status quo, and I'm saying we do not need this level of analysis over and over and over again. Number 4, my final one today, is starting with the end in mind and then working backwards. So building owners need to have a clear vision of what the future of their building looks like, their future decarbonized building. And we know that it may take decades to get there, and it's not all going to happen at once. But if you have this vision for what it looks like, you can create a roadmap for getting there. And again, even though it'll take decades to get there, we need to make sure that every single retrofit along the way is designed to fit incrementally into that future state. Without that roadmap, it's too easy for owners to just replace failed equipment for a like-for-like solution, because there just simply isn't another solution available to them. And I'll finish the presentation with just a quick example of where we at Island Health have decided to install a heat recovery chiller to replace a failing chiller without any real concrete design for how we're going to use that recovered heat, right? But we know that our future building is going to be recovering heat. So we're going to put that in now and not lose our opportunity to get that heat recovery chiller in. So thank you for that time to present, and I'd happily look forward to having some conversation around these. So thank you.
Yeah, this is a great list. Can you put it back up?
Yeah, sorry.
Although we know what tool you use now.
SkySpark's the best. Oh, yeah.
Don't go there. Jim, I don't know whether you got any of that. You joined sort of halfway through Justin's last slide. But Justin is somebody that used to work with SES, which is the company that Ken started, and is now with a group called Island Health, obviously a health system in Vancouver Island. Are you with us, Jim? Or are you?
I am, Anto. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Good. I am. I did get most of it. Thank you. Very
okay.
Interesting.
And any specific comments at this point?
Yeah, I like the disruption angle. I think that there's way too much spent on energy engineering overhead, proving the obvious. So love that comment.
Thank you. I'm gonna steal that "proving the obvious" slogan. That's a good one.
Right.
Yeah, great. I mean, one of the, I'm a technologist at heart, so one of the things that I'm sort of looking at this list is that you're sort of, without saying it, are you sort of advocating for productizing the systems and the tools that's needed for this to happen, and let those tools and products be used internally? Is that another way of actually, I can sort of think about what you're saying?
I think I'd use the word like programmatic more, where I think the core piece is having that expert in-house who understands what the technology is, and like I believe all the technology already exists. It's all there. But we're basically forcing them to try and figure it all out by themselves. And then getting them to spend money on external consultants to come in and help teach them what they need to know. I feel like it can be done more programmatically. So for example, you don't need to go into a building and investigate opportunities to recommission it. You just have to have a list of the top 10 things for how to recommission a building, and give that list to that person and say, do as many as you can, as quickly as possible. No energy savings required. Just do it. We know they work.
Yep.
Open it up to Audrey, Ken, Steve.
Yeah, so Jim, nice meeting you. Really appreciate you, or Justin, rather, really appreciate you joining us and sharing your thoughts. A couple questions immediately come to mind with regard to politically, if you will, from Island Health's perspective. Was it solely the goals for decarbonization that led to them making the decision to bring your expertise in-house, or was there something else?
Well, I had been a consultant for Island Health for over, like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. Okay. So we had been achieving results and going through the regular model, and we were quite successful. So they realized it worked, but that it was too expensive to have consultants coming in doing all of the work. So they valued the service and wanted more. And so that was the and there had been a lot of conversations over the years with their utility partners. So when the utility partners decided, hey, let's pilot this approach, Island Health jumped on top of that opportunity. GHGs is our number one target, or it's our number one metric, saved GHGs. So it's definitely driving the overall energy program.
Yeah, and the reason I'm bringing this up is the challenge we often have with trying to sell any of the, I think we all agree with you that the technology is there, but getting buyers to buy it, if you will, is a fundamental challenge for two reasons. One, they don't have an equivalent, rarely do they have an equivalent of you in-house who can appreciate what's being offered. And then that person normally lacks strong influence from a decision-making and from a budgetary standpoint to say, just take an example, analytics, okay? Yeah. It's demonstrated its value to identifying and managing these kinds of energy savings opportunities. But there are so few building owners out there who, A, even understand what analytics are, let alone can make, where the internal people can make the case why that would be a worthwhile investment. Mm-hmm. So that's the sort of the fundamental challenge we see in the marketplace, is getting owners to make these decisions and fund these decisions. And there has to be a reason to why they want to do it. And decarbonization seems to be, or what we're talking about, climate change, seems to be finally maybe the reason why owners will finally act. Because often, up to now, we've been primarily leveraging energy savings. Mm-hmm. And Jim Lee can tell you, as he often says on Monday Live, the energy savings are often such a small percentage of the overall operating budget that nobody pays attention.
Yeah.
Which seems sort of nonsensical, but it is what it is. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, lots to respond to there. Couple things that come to mind. This is the reason why internalizing energy efficiency engineering is on my top list here.
Yeah.
That you need to have that expert in-house who can talk the talk with guys like yourself, see the value, and then convince the organization that this is the direction we need to go. That comes from trust, right? Which comes from building strong relationships. So one of the in the article that I wrote, the other key relationship is with executive leadership, because if I can get their trust, which I have, they listen to me, and if I understand the technology, I have that leverage to get it in our buildings and again speed things up. We need it in our buildings now, not several years from now. So this is what I want to do through this position and doing events like this, is I want to make it really clear that this is highly successful. If you have 100 buildings, why would you, like, it's starting to become just wild to me now that you wouldn't have an engineer or two on staff that understand the current innovation in technology in the building space, right? Like,
yeah. Well, as your point earlier is when IT came in, it made that natural transition to where any company of size created an IT department, right, with a CIO and a variety of skill sets in networking and applications and software and so on. And that's just how largely IT is done in companies of any size. So why should this be any different, to your point?
Yeah, and it definitely shouldn't. So I think that's my hope. I want to be part of that spark that makes it really clear that, and we are seeing it now. There's new roles coming out in BC right now. They're planning to expand this program to, I've heard numbers between 10 and 20 other large organizations are going to get this role. My role officially is called Building Automation Systems Specialist, but the new roles that are coming out are more like Building Performance Optimization Manager or something like that.
Yeah.
Audrey, you want to chime in?
Yeah. From my side, I mean, Steve, I absolutely agree with what you're just saying about how today, building owners, maybe they don't care or don't see the investment. We really have to convince them. And so for me, this list, ways to speed up decarbonization, my perspective is different. The number one thing I would put there is policy and influencing policy to make it a requirement. I mean, there's nothing more compelling to someone who owns a building than saying, you have to do this. You can't not do this anymore. And just to share some experience for me, I mean, I'm doing this professionally, but also in my personal life, I am volunteering with environmentalist organizations here in Seattle, where the community, just regular people are coming together to demand to the Seattle City Council that we have to have the building emission standards for any commercial building over 20,000 square feet in the city, so fully electrified, and they're pushing for 2030, which I know sounds, how could we possibly do that? But that's what people are demanding. That's what the public is demanding. So I mean, that's where I see the number one thing is policy. And what I've noticed by being someone who is a professional in sustainability and then also working with just regular people who care about the environment, about the health of their community, their children, their family, is there's a really big disconnect between people today don't necessarily know all of us. Like we're not connected. We, the people on this call, hold the keys to be able to do all of this great work to bring down emissions from buildings, but although the people I've been volunteering with, like, we don't know anyone who can do this work. So I think in terms of speeding up decarbonization, if we can improve those connections between folks in building industry, but also maybe people we wouldn't necessarily consider partnering with all the time, who are part of environmental organizations, et cetera, can come together and create policy that works for the city, for example. So, yeah.
Yeah, the policy answer to this question obviously is important, but it's very different, and it's a different perspective to what Justin's talking about, because Justin's sort of in the field tactically doing things, and this is a very different list, and obviously the two are complementary. Right. They should be complementary.
Justin, you're looking more micro level at, like, if you're a business, if you're an organization, that these are the things you need to do. And I'm thinking macro, how do we all move towards this decarbonization goal?
Which is great. And in my article, I actually refer to the fact that without executive leadership buy-in and capital, you're not going anywhere quick, right? So I sort of allude to, like, you need that for sure. You can't do anything without that. You also need the policy there, and being in BC, we have lots of that. I was on a call, again, I think I do mention this in the article too. I was on a call with over 30 other energy managers in this region, and Island Health was the only company that put their hand up to say they were going to achieve their 2030 targets. So my rebuttal is that even with the policy, even with the money, people still aren't going to hit their 2030 targets. So yeah, the sort of the core of my thesis is a very tactical level. How do you actually execute? Like, spending, if someone dropped, $100 million on any organization, they would have an extremely difficult time spending that money unless they have certain things in place. And that's where I'm really focusing. So yeah, slightly different focus, but still good conversation.
I'm going to bring on Stephen Kapp, who raised his hand. Bring him on as a panelist, and we'll see what he has to say. In the meantime, hi, Anno.
Hey guys, sorry for being late.
It's okay. And anybody else?
Jim Lee here. While you're bringing that on, Anto, we've worked for many years to instantiate utility rebates in different parts of the country to bring on this technology. And the same answer comes back to me again and again, which is it's not about money in this business. It's about a disconnect between the C-suite high level and the VP director of facilities level, where the vision goes awry, where we can have a lot of greenwashing and rhetoric from the top, but without dollars and a will to do this stuff, what we typically find is that it disperses before it gets to an appropriate level to actually take action. And so to me, that's where the problem is organizationally, between the greenwashing rhetoric at the very top and the substance of the VP of facility level to actually execute.
I'd imagine Justin's perspective on that is that if you have somebody internal, then the relationship is potentially going to be much easier, even up and down that stack, up and down to the C level.
Yeah, and
if you have somebody internal, you've already decided to be serious, right?
Yeah, I think that's where you make the pitch purely at an operational level. Again, if you're going to operate dozens or hundreds of buildings, you should have an engineer on staff. Most municipalities all have an engineering department. Yes, they still leverage external consultants, but you have that person in-house that can be the champion for the program. And, I could write a book already of all the amazing problems that we've solved using automation, using building automation that people couldn't solve for decades. These problems existed, and it wasn't until an engineer with all the tools available could come in and solve these problems. And those are way more valuable than the energy savings. So really, I think, yes, the greenwashing exists, but I think operationally, it just makes so much sense. And I really want to help people understand that.
Stephen, you're on on as a panelist now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Hey, I'm on a docking station, so I got my headset going, and I can't do video right now. But yeah, I've been a participant, been in the industry, and been following, as you know, your series, and more than happy to participate in discussion today.
Do you have a specific perspective on what Justin has presented?
Yeah, actually, as an energy engineer, been in the industry a long time, mostly have worked for service providers. Interesting take that he has is that from the customer perspective, it adds a lot of value. I've had two jobs significantly in the last few years of my career here where I worked for a state agency as energy and sustainability manager, and then now working in a military base, Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, as an engineering consultant through a contract with the Marine Corps. But I'm representing, supporting, facilitating projects for our installation energy manager, or utility manager. And it gives me a unique perspective just to kind of hold consultants and everyone else to the fire to ensure that we get what we need. And there is a different perspective. There's a definite advantage to have that in-house. And the nice thing is we're considered part of his team. And so I like the merits of it. And from the standpoint of having one has done several hundred energy audits, we do need to get to a greater scale to facilitate these. You know, to the comment that here's the top 10 retro commissioning or monitoring based commissioning things. Don't do an analysis about what it would take to do it, just do it. Well, maybe I temper it by saying maybe the top 3 to 5 things, just do it. Another 3 to 5, see how the first 5 go and so forth. But yeah, we all know that there's huge benefit from doing some very simple things off the top, like squeezing the day as far as schedule, adjusting thermostats, checking economizer linkages and actuators, checking other set points, seeing if the outside air sensors or even humidity sensors have failed. It doesn't take too long to do a strategic look and see that there's opportunity there. So I like the discussion, and I think we could do more, we could do better. And smart buildings is very pervasive in the realm of what it can do. And it does also parlay out to infrastructure for those who are like-minded in that area as well.
And I agree with you. I would say, you know, one of the problems with the consultant-based model is the building owner typically says, here's a building, can you please optimize this building for me? And so to your point, the top 3 things are real kind of easy to do, which is schedule and get your ventilation right effectively. And so really what I'm allowed to do internally is I can run a programmatic approach where I say, let's do those top 3 in as many buildings as possible. You know, because if you're looking for 10 ways to recommission a building, there's the depreciating return, right? So I can get way more bang for my buck if I just do the top 3 across 100 buildings. And that's a huge advantage, right?
Absolutely. And just one last comment. You commented how you did some consulting and you gained their trust and they became familiar with you. Even if that is not the case in some situations, I think we're both sort of saying also that if you get some momentum by doing, say, 1 or 2 buildings, maybe don't do wide and do a shallow level of measures, but that have a wide impact. Just go 2 or 3 and you prove it, you show the difference, and you get that momentum, you get the buy-in from the C-suite and management and facilities, and then you're on your way.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Justin, when we were talking before, one of the ideas you spun that was interesting to me is that they allowed you to use some of the actual savings you had achieved. You were able to reinvest it. Could you maybe touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, that speaks to the build strong relationship piece and building trust. Is currently I go into a building, do an investigation, come up with some measures just like a consultant would do, and then pitch that measure to that local FMO team. And then they have to fund it. So let's say it's going to cost $20,000 to save $40,000. I still have to make that sell to these FMO guys, and they have their operation budget that's dwindling, and so once you build trust, they give you the money, but again, it delays things. So our executive leadership has approved a green revolving fund, which allows us to fund measures ourselves and get a cut of the savings. So now we're freed from that delay. And that's that pitch. Oh, I'm so tired of pitching people on like 80% returns on their money.
Right.
So yeah, it's a very powerful mechanism to fund.
Yeah, that's huge. And I thought that was a very interesting idea. Did you get a chance to go to the Rebuild Initiative at the?
So I was sick last week and unfortunately missed it. But it's a consortium of local industry, institutional, academic folks. It's led by the University of Victoria. I've put my hand up and said Island Health wants to support. We want to give you our data, because that's usually what they lack, is just access to data. So we have all kinds of data. And then we also want to provide some employment support through co-op students or fund graduate studies.
It seemed like it was building the bridge that Audrey was talking about, like trying to get out to the groups that are passionate about decarbonization, but don't really understand the technologies that might be necessary to make it happen. It seemed to me there was a bit of a melding pot there. Is that what you kind of think is happening there?
I do. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I'm looking forward to being part of it.
The other comment I was going to make just then is that on your list, you were talking about start with the end in mind, and you were then talking about that and then enable the organization to get better over time, progressing to that thing. What's interesting about that is that this has actually been a topic on Monday Live for a couple of years now, and it's one of the reasons why we use the word smarter buildings rather than smart buildings, because smart buildings implies that you can get there immediately.
Yeah.
You can install some magical technology or something that will actually make everything smart, but that's not really how it works. What you do is you do progressive things, different people do different things, and each stage makes the building smarter and smarter, and over time it just gets smarter and smarter. So it's a reflection on both those being really nicely aligned.
Yeah, like the golden nugget is you have to do the project anyway. You have to do the upgrade anyway. So you could do it like for like, or you could do it this other way. And that's when we need to know about that business case for that energy measure, not years before, years after. So lining that up is a fascinating problem.
Yeah, cool. Anna, any thoughts?
Yeah, sorry for joining in late, Justin. I kind of got most of your stuff, but and I agree with you on the building the trust with the internal champion, because I think addresses, as Jim says, it does. Once you've got an internal champion, it does show that the organization's commitment to it. It's just now work it out. What's the details and how do we promote it and how do we put it in. And the advantage of internal champions, of course, is they know how to translate what you're saying to their internal speak, their internal language and stuff. Challenge with the champions, of course, is they can disappear underneath with you. I'm sure you've done the same. I mean, you've got to constantly be cultivating the other champions once you've got the first one, right? And that,
yeah, it's really a team.
Yeah, thank you.
I figure the team is probably 4 or 5 of us.
Yeah.
To optimize a portfolio of 100 healthcare facilities, Yeah. And then we leverage all of the on-site DDC people, but we're sort of the ones with fault detection and all the engineering capacity.
Yeah, actually, I like that. That's a better term for it, right? Rather than internal champion, it's the internal team, that you cultivate.
Building optimization team.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share an interesting story that I'd heard. And this goes to what you were just saying on and also Jim earlier when you were talking about greenwashing. So, I'm in Seattle, so Amazon is a big deal here. And I heard some very interesting information about them, which is, of course, they have their GHG emissions, et cetera. But at the same time, they have been fighting against legislation in the city for electrification that is actually necessary in order for them to meet those targets. So they were receiving a lot of flack for that of, you have to do these things to meet these targets. You're never going to meet those targets without it. And the employees essentially unionized. I don't know what their group is called, Amazon Employees for Environment, something like that. And they just scheduled a walkout and they refused to work until Amazon created a plan for how they're going to do things, which I love. I'm all for it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, of course, you have your team, the people like Justin who can do it. But again, to that point of, what if they all get hired away somewhere else where they're needed or something, having that broad support within the employee base, I think is really powerful.
That's really clever and interesting. I had not really thought about, to your point, we've always sort of focused in on the operational folks and the people who can execute and stuff, but to actually engage with the occupants in some context that's really compelling.
Yeah. We focus on C-suite a lot, the decision makers, if you will, but the people have power. I'll just put that out there.
And one of the, there's been a lot of unforeseen benefits to this program we've been doing, and one of them is that you've probably heard this before, but like our FMO people, the people on site working, operating the buildings, their most common complaint: no one ever listens to me. I knew that thing needed to be replaced months ago. No one ever listens to me. I listen to them, and because I know how much they know, but I can translate it to Anno's comment. I can translate it to the decision makers. I can speak all of their languages. And so we've seen more and more and more and more engagement from our site staff. And that's when the magic really happens.
Yeah, I got to echo that point, Justin, and I've seen that guy too, right? And part of his challenge, we've, much like you've solved with getting him the data that he needs to be able to bring his message forward.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, those guys, we call them the building whisperer, right? The guy who's been there and he actually knows everything about everything and he's in tune with the building. But the problem is he lacks the data that he can present his case, in a unified voice,
Often he's just speaking a different language too. Like I've seen our capital projects team, the project managers, in the 11th hour say, here's 100 design drawings. Can you please review these and let us know if you have any comments? Yeah. And it's a different language. They don't even open that up. So, but I love design drawings, So yeah, understanding that people speak different languages and then having this translator involved is very valuable.
And the point that Audrey made was that's actually a different language as well. It's the employees in that case gathering together and say, we as an employee don't want this, right? And you can see, I can think immediately another type of occupant of buildings are retail customers, right? So presumably retail customers could basically make this message by going somewhere else, right? That's another way of doing that, right? So there's lots of different ways that these messages can be communicated to highlight the need for making the facility more efficient.
I'm going to harp on that point a little bit longer. I love that point. I'm going to steal that one, Audrey. Sorry. I think but it's not something that has occurred to me in the past. In how do you empower the people actually as the tenants? How do you give them voice? Yeah. So if you marry up the guy that we just talked about, Justin, with the voice of the tenants, if you can marry those two things, now you've got a 1 + 1 is 3 equation that you're going to the management with. Right?
Yeah, I've always assumed that it's the local on-site FMO staff that are dealing with the people. But yeah, I'm interested now. I'm wondering about a direct connection between our team and the occupant. That's a neat.
Yeah, and to Anto's point, they will have to hear a slightly different message. You'll have to translate it differently for them.
Yeah,
but with the same objective.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to steal all this, so thank you.
Okay, let me talk to the folks who shared that, so I can get, if there's an article or something, so you have the details in case.
That'd be cool.
Great, that'd be really great.
Yeah, let me grab that.
I just want to blurt in here too, because back in the old days, we were trying to sell energy management control systems. And one of our guys that was implementing this stuff, he said, energy management means to the client that you're managing my energy, you're taking away my heating, you're taking away my cooling. He said, what we're really doing is we're providing client comfort systems. And we actually renamed our whole program Client Comfort. And I think what we've twigged onto with decarbonization is there's an emotional connection between decarbonization and what it is we're doing. And it's a positive one. And when we tell them we're doing energy management, they go, you're not going to fiddle with my temperature, get away. But when we tell them we're doing decarbonization and we're going to help them meet some global goals and some city goals, I think we're kind of part of the building. So I think just using those words. And just the other one, I think, Justin, you've had a bit of experience here too, but I know Brad has, he no longer is looking for energy conservation engineers, he's looking for decarbonization engineers, and he's getting way more applicants.
Wow. Yeah, if you haven't written the article, Audrey, on what you just said, you should.
I've written a similar article that goes to Anto's point before about retail, where we talk about, we often talk about operational costs when it comes to decarbonization, energy savings, et cetera, but other costs in terms of, do your customers want to shop with you or whatever it is that your business is? I mean, it's very clear in terms of retail, especially something like fashion and apparel. Sustainability is just the name of the game right now. So they're under enormous pressure to show, they being, clothing companies, under enormous pressure to show that they are sustainable. But even things, universities, for example, the Princeton Review has an annual college hopes and worries survey that they do, and over 70% of respondents said that the sustainability of the campus would affect their decision of whether they go to that university. So I think it touches every single segment, whoever that customer is, the tenant is. If we just broaden what we think of who the stakeholders are and who really makes the decisions, right?
So there was an article on your site, Ken, by Brian Collins, on delivering experiences, the fact that we're really delivering experiences, not HVAC, that also lines up with this as well. So it is targeting who's consuming the experience, who's consuming the building, rather than who's operating the building.
Yeah, it does need to be an active program, though, to reach out to those. How do you message what Justin's talking about to the tenant, right? How do you message that in a language they understand, so that the building whisperer gets the bonus, gets the push?
I bet what it is we're trying to shake off our boiler room Bob image, which we've always had, and we're actually becoming socially acceptable. And especially me, I'm having a lot of trouble with that. It's a big leap. So I think that's sort of the problem, is that people are actually interested in what we're doing. Actually, when you have the elevator talk, people tell me more about what decarbonization is. Nobody asks, tell me more about what automated buildings are. Trust me.
Yeah. So Ken, do you want to just spend a few seconds wrapping up this session, and then we can call it a day?
Great session. Love to have these younger faces here, and basically just some new ideas. And the big one, pull out of this one is the connection between the client in the building and what we're doing. I think that was leap. I didn't get that coming into this. I wasn't expecting that was going to be an outcome, but it is quite true. Justin has a bit of a captive audience. They're all kind of laying down in their beds and they can't run away. But in a lot of buildings, they can run away and vote, as in the Amazon example. So I think that's pretty neat. And thank you for bringing that one, Audrey. That was great.
Yeah, I'm going to put it in the chat. I just got a text. The group is called Amazon Employees for Climate Justice. They even have a Twitter.
Justice.
So.
Hey, love it. I'm looking forward to your article as well. As a contributing editor.
I got to write more.
She can write this. She can have it to you tomorrow.
Oh God.
Okay, so let's wrap up the show. Thank you, Audrey, thanks, Justin and Stephen as well for contributing to this conversation. And have a great week. And we'll put a video of this up on YouTube tomorrow, Wednesday. Thanks all. Bye bye.
Thanks everybody. Bye now.
Bye.